So I was just on retreat this past week in Prince Edward Island with the priests of the Archdiocese here. Beautiful spot in Cavendish near the home of Anne of Green Gables. I didn't visit though, I didn't make a pilgrimage there. But lots of time for prayer and reflection, and every afternoon between the talks, we'd have this window of time. And so I would do two things. I would take a nap in honor of Father Alex, and secondly, I tried to get in some exercise. And so this one afternoon, Father Tim Devine, so he's a brother companion of the cross. He's also a priest who's the pastor in Lower Sackville at Holy Trinity. He wanted to go for a walk. And so we decided to go for a walk along the beach. And I think in an hour, we did about 6 kilometers. It's pretty impressive. His mom refers to him as a mountain goat because Father Tim, he can just truck along. He's a good hiker. And so I should note he's blind. And so the whole time he held onto my elbow and we walked along the beach. And I was kind of like his guide dog, if you will, right? And most of the time was in silence, prayerfully reflecting. And every once in a while I'd say, hey, Tim, there's these beautiful sand dunes to our left, or the ocean is to our right. It's just gorgeous. At one point I said, Tim, don't be alarmed, but there's this big, scary creature approaching us. One of the other priests, Father Eve, was also out for a walk. He's another companion, and he had taken his shirt off. And so let's just say sometimes being blind has its perks, right? But as I was walking and praying, I was just reflecting. I was so grateful for the gift to be out on this journey, one, and secondly, the privilege to be able to be guiding my brother, Father Tim. And in fact, the next day, I opened my Bible and I stumbled upon this verse, we walk by faith and not by sight, which took on a whole new meaning. We are all on a journey. And this is a metaphor that can be used to describe various aspects of life. You could think of education, an education path where kids start in primary, they go into elementary school, junior high, high school, many continue on to college or university. And during these years, they have teachers who guide them along the way. Or a career path, right? Maybe starting with a part-time job or doing some kind of internship and eventually moving into a more permanent position and ascending the corporate ladder, as they say, and maybe blessed to have a good mentor along the way. There's also a spiritual path, a similar step-by-step journey where we can advance, we can make progress, we can also take detours and get lost sometimes. In fact, the very next day after walking along the beach with Father Tim, I went back for a long walk by myself. And at one point, there's this big open stretch of beach. I figured, I'm just going to close my eyes and see how I do. So I walked in a straight line. I probably took about 10 steps or something. I had completely veered off track. I almost ended up in the drink, right? And that's how it is, right? Sometimes in the spiritual life, we can get off track too. But there are a couple challenges to this spiritual life that I want to name specifically. One is that we aren't always aware that it exists, right? This is less obvious, this journey, than some of the more visible ones. And in fact, much of this journey is interior. Now, it has an exterior consequence for sure, but it's this invisible journey with God. The second thing is that we don't know often that we have to freely choose this journey. We have to freely choose to be on it, to begin it. Just like with education or a career, it's not something that happens by accident. It's intentional choices, decisions to start and to continue on this journey. Now, a word that we use to describe this spiritual journey is something called discipleship. That Jesus, who is our master, our guide, he invites us on this journey to follow after him, to imitate him in all things, to go wherever he goes. You might be asking, well, where are we going? Well, where did Jesus go? And on this day, Ascension Sunday, we celebrate this moment. Jesus, who died, he rose on the third day. He spent 40 days offering guidance to his disciples, and then he ascended into heaven to be at the right hand of the Father. And I don't know if you caught it, there was this line in the collect, the opening prayer that I sung at the beginning of Mass, that says this: where the head, meaning Jesus, has gone before in glory, the body, all of us, the disciple, is called to follow in hope. So where Jesus went, where Jesus ascended, this is where we are meant to go ultimately as well. Our hope is for heaven. Now, unfortunately, we can't just jump to the end of this journey. You know, it's not like Star Trek where you can just like teleport ahead up to heaven. Although I imagine it was pretty cool that day on the Ascension where Jesus ascended on a cloud. I don't know exactly what it looked like, but it seemed neat. But keep in mind, Jesus, he didn't just go to heaven. His journey that he was on took him through the cross. Right? And so for those of us who are following Jesus, don't be surprised if there are times that are challenging and difficult. But if we follow Jesus in this life, we will be with him, continue to walk with him in the next life. And I want to zero in on a pivotal moment in this journey of discipleship, and it's something called conversion. And maybe this is stuff you've heard of before, it's review for you, but I think it's important to come back to. Conversion is this moment of going from not being a disciple of Jesus to becoming a disciple of Jesus. It's this journey that maybe somebody started off with no faith background whatsoever, or maybe they even had been coming to church regularly, not sure why. It was part of the tradition, part of the routine. But at some point, something changes. There's this conversion. And the way I like to summarize it, a person has a kind of experience of God. The love of God is so real for them, it's so personal, that they then make the decision to surrender their life and follow after Jesus. That's what I'm talking about with a conversion. And this can take many, many forms. It could be one big moment in a person's life, or it could be a series of little moments where you say yes again and again. And finally, you're in this place where, yeah, I really am following Jesus. I'm his disciple. And one of the places in Scripture that describes this conversion is in our second reading today from Ephesians chapter 1. Listen to this line. With the eyes of your heart enlightened, you may know what is the hope to which he has called you. Now, this is a pretty weird image if you stop to think about it. So the eyes of your heart, it's like, picture, this organ in the middle of your body, and it's got little eyeballs on the front of it, right? That's obviously strange. But and it reminds me, in fact, of this worship song from the 90s, Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. Well, anytime the Bible refers to the heart, what it's referring to is not just this organ that pumps blood throughout our system, but the heart was believed to be the very center of the person. It was, yes, the center of emotions, of feelings, but it was also considered to be the center of intellect, the center of the will, the place from which we make choices. And so when a person has a conversion, it's like the very center of themselves is enlightened, wakes up, sees in a new way that Jesus is the Lord. And says, yeah, I get it, I understand, I fall in love with him, and I choose to follow after him. That's what we're talking about. And when that happens for a person, everything changes. They're filled with hope for the future. And though there may have been many steps along the journey leading up to this moment of conversion, or the season of conversion, after that, that's when things really take off in the spiritual life. I want to share a quick story about a beautiful lady in our parish. She's well into her 80s, and I saw her on Easter Sunday here at Mass. She can't drive, so she's not able to come as often as she would like. But when she came that day, and this is somebody who, by the way, I know that she's had a conversion at the center of her heart. Well, she came and I saw her, and she mentioned to me that there had been this very serious recent diagnosis of cancer, and so I pulled her aside and was quickly able to celebrate the anointing of the sick with her, and she was grateful. And afterwards, she told me about the person who had chauffeured her to Mass that day. And she said, you know what, this guy, he isn't really a believer. And then with a twinkle in her eye, she said, but I'm praying for him. And I'm praying that he's going to have an experience of God here at Easter Sunday Mass today. And she asked me to pray for him as well. And I'm just so inspired by this woman, right? Here she is in her state of life with this serious sickness. She is still trying to help others to see that there is a journey and how to get started on it. It's kind of like that day I was walking with Father Tim. You know, it was such a blessing. Yes, to be able to guide him on this journey, but it was a blessing for me as well to be with him along the journey. Now at St. Benedict Parish, we are all about the journey of discipleship. You know, we're called, each one of us, to be on this step-by-step journey with Jesus, and we're called to help others see the journey and get started. And this comes back to our core purpose. The way we describe it, we say St. Benedict exists to make disciples who joyfully live out the mission of Jesus. That we're here to help people get on the journey of discipleship, because then we and they can ultimately hope for heaven, that we would ascend to be with God one day in heaven. And years ago, we came up with this discipleship pathway, kind of like a map to describe the journey that we're on. And we call it the game plan. You've probably seen it on the wall everywhere. It's this map to help us, these little things to recommend, to help us as we go on the journey. And right at the center of it is this question: what's next? Which presumes that there is more. For every single person, if you've just arrived or if you've been here for years and years and years, and you're very mature in your faith, well, what's next? Because we're all called to more. We don't ever want to plateau. We don't want to veer off track. Now, every year on the Ascension, we hear what's called the Great Commission. And this year we hear it in Mark chapter 16, Mark's version. Go into all the world and proclaim the good news to the whole creation. Why? So that people who come to believe and are baptized, that they would be saved, that they would ultimately get on the journey and go to heaven. Well, Jesus commissioned his church, these early disciples, to go make other disciples. And he's actually commissioning us here at St. Benedict to do the very same thing, to constantly be making new disciples. And here on this Ascension Sunday, I guess what I want us to do is to geolocate, right? To get a sense of where are we right now on this journey? Where are you individually? Where are we as a parish on this journey as we're trying to make disciples? Now, I've got some good news for you. I'm going to try to end this homily a little early, shorter than normal, but the purpose is to give us some time to respond. I want to ask everybody to fill out this short survey. It'll take 2 or 3 minutes, but really to pause, prayerfully self-reflect on where you are on this spiritual journey. And there's 6 options, so I'll just go through it really quickly so you get a sense. We hope that every single person can identify with one and only one of these. So first, I've encountered Jesus in a meaningful way for the first time in the last year or so. The second is that that first one is like, the eyes of my heart have been opened in this last year. I've had an experience with Jesus that has helped deepen my relationship with him. So something big happened. Maybe you started to pray. Maybe you started to serve, or you got into a life group or something. I've continued to be fully engaged in a relationship with Jesus that affects my daily life. You can say, yeah, Jesus is really at the center. Everything, it's not about perfection, but my life revolves around him. I've attended church, online or in person, but the other categories don't apply to me. I've been searching or I'm unsure how to answer, and that's honest, and we appreciate that. I want to open my heart to Jesus today for the very first time. And so that's so beautiful if that's your disposition. So I just want to give you some time to reflect. I'm going to put up on the screen here this QR code. If you've got a cell phone with you, I'm going to ask you to pull out your phone right now. You're allowed to pull out your phone in church. I'm inviting you. You can put your camera on and just scan the code, or you can type in the website directly, stbenedict.ca/survey, and participate in this quick survey. Now, it's going to be way faster if you do this with your phones, but also if you need help, maybe somebody next to you knows how to use your phone better than you. But if you would prefer a physical card, you can do that too. If you want a physical card, the hospitality people are just walking through the pews. Just put your hand up if you'd like a physical card, and they'll give you a card and a pencil, just so you can fill that out as well. And we'll just have a bit of soft music in the background as we go to help us reflect on where we are on this spiritual journey. So again, if you want a card, just raise your hand high and hold it up until one of the hospitality folks is able to get to you and give you a card and a pencil.